Okay, we're back to working on Whispering Vale. I've got some uh, content that is not ready to post. There's processing and whatnot. I've got to get to it where I had started on the level editor and starting to kind of get things built up for that. That we're kind of skipping over at this point because I'm having anxiety issues around processing that and getting it ready to upload. And so that's one of the reasons that there hasn't been a video at all this week. And so I'm just going to avoid that right now and do this video for working on where we're at. I'll start with giving a quick kind of overview of what we've kind of added, where we're at, and then we'll just kind of continue from there. And then maybe at some point down the line, I'll get through processing that other data, and you can see kind of how we got from the last video, ending up with our kind of main menu and whatnot, how we got to this point. Where at this point, you can see within the source code, we've added quite a few files. So we have a cell part file, map cell data, map data assets, and a map manager. And so if we go kind of over through some of that, just to bring you a little up to speed on what we've got here. So the eCell part is just an enum that defines essentially kind of the different things currently that can be within each cell of the map. So a map can be empty, it can have a floor, it can have a ceiling, north wall, east wall, south wall, west wall. So just a helper enum just to kind of make things a little more clear as to what we're referencing, rather than just having hard-coded strings or hard-coded values or whatever. So then there's the map cell data, which is a blueprint type and defines a soft object pointer to a cell's floor mesh, ceiling mesh, north wall mesh, east wall mesh, south west wall mesh. Quick little Boolean to mark, whether it's walkable or not, which we're not really doing much with that. And then a little helper function that allows us to pass in a part from the enum and then get back the reference to whatever mesh should be displayed in that spot. Then we have our map data asset. So this is a U data set. This essentially is what holds the map. So this is going to define, size, how many grids wide, how many grids high, holds an array then of those cells. And this is the data that will get changed as a map gets built out and defined. And then finally, we have the map manager. And so this is the thing that then goes into the level, can load a map, and is responsible for rendering then the meshes for each cell. And this is what we're going to be looking at in this video. So in the previous steps, we got to the point where I could get the map to display. So it would display the floor mesh, it would display the wall mesh, whatever. But there was an issue with how Gemini had initially set up that code, in that it's going to be kind of hard to explain. But the way it had set it up, it wasn't possible for us to have distinct meshes that shared the same static mesh. So like currently, the floor mesh and the ceiling mesh are the same static mesh. any of the four walls is going to be the same. And the way that the code was initially generated, that didn't work. So if a cell had, say, a wall on the north and a wall on the west, both walls would just be drawn on the north. So I had Gemini refactor that code. And where we're at now is we've got that code to the point where it compiles, and everything's kind of set up and air quotes working. But we're at a point now where nothing is rendering when we load up a map. So if I jump to here, so you can see we have a level test. Inside that test is the map manager. That map manager is pointing to our MD test level map data asset and has a defined grid cell size of 400. And then within our maps directory, you can see there's our MD test level. And so that inherits that map data asset and defines it. So here we're able to, set what's the size of our map. So 36 by 36 grids. And then, it gives us then this array of 36 times 36 items, representing each of the cells. And so, right. So right now we don't have anything in here. So if I come in here and I set for the first cell, I can say I want my floor mesh. Oh, and then we crash. Okay. Well, that might be an issue that we're fixing today. Because obviously there's still kind of some things off on here. And I'm going to kind of step away from, truly vibe coding the issue at this point. And I'm just going to debug the code myself and fix it under, the, I don't know, definition might be too strong of a word for, technically vibe coding. The process is really meant for you to 100% trust what the AI is doing, right? And if there's issues, you're not looking at the code, you're not touching the code, you're just going back to the AI and being like, hey, having this issue, go fix it. But realistically, I don't know why anyone would want to do that. You want to understand the code that's there. You want to be applying, what about software and about development. And really, I think more, or at least the way that I approach it is more using the AI as, really for me, it's a way for me to make sure that I'm continuing to move forward. So it's, being, sitting in my house by myself, doing this, it's really like, a coworker that I can bounce ideas off of, that I can, that can help, stimulate my thinking and keep me moving forward. Okay. So we did have, all right. So apparently our last crashed, thing was just something messed up with that. So you can see in here, so we do have a floor mesh defined, we have a ceiling mesh defined, and we have a north wall and a west wall. So we have that defined within our MD test level. If we go back to our level and we pull up that level, root component. Okay, so we've got an issue loading that. All right, so let's look at that. So failed to load the outer for resource root component in our map manager. All right, and so now we have no map manager. So let's look at that. Let's pull up. All right, so we've got our map manager. Let's see, what are we doing in our constructor here? So setting primary can ever tick to false, and then setting root component. And this is probably what's killing us. And we don't have an overridden definition of set root component. So this is just falling back to the actor, which generally takes a new root component. And okay, so we're create default sub object scene component root component. All right, and if we look, let's look at so we've got level test and we have a directional light. And so is it expecting something called named root component? It must be. But let's, we can go back through Gemini a little bit and we can look at kind of where we were at and where it initially left off. Yeah, so here's where, because this is what it was initially doing, right? So I told it, we need to update the way that we are generating the transforms and rendering the static meshes. We can't rely on pointer equality, which is what it was doing, as assets will be shared within a cell. And so that's kind of then the refactor, right? So we looked at it. So the current approach for create cell meshes relies on separate HISM components for each wall direction, floor, and ceiling, and implicitly ties the transform calculation to which component the instance was added to. So it was determining how to position that asset based off of pointer equality to a particular name. And so if it checked the north wall first, and the north wall was using the same mesh as the west wall, then that mesh would always be rendered in the north wall position. And so that's why it didn't work. So it came up with a couple of different directions, either doing separate members or doing a map for the walls, whatever. And then its recommendation was keep separate object pointer members in map cell data, but introduce the eCell part enum and refactor the map manager to calculate transforms based on the enum. So there's where we got our cell part from. We got our map cell data updates there, and then we're into our updates on our map manager, which is now broken some things. And so it looks like initially we're getting this issue on the root component. So let me understand, because I don't remember in Unreal, and I haven't done a whole lot with 5. I've done most of my Unreal work was back in 4.2, so I don't know what all's changed between 4 and 5, but we can ask Gemini just to make sure that we're thinking of this in the same point. For this line of code, is it expecting that there is an item in the scene that is named root component, or is root component just always whatever the top component is? Just so I can understand for sure what that line is doing. Text root component. So create default sub-object is a templated function used within the constructor of an actor. And Gemini's having a day. To create and initialize a new component that will be owned by this actor. It's the standard way to create components that are integral parts of an actor's default setup. So uScene component, this template argument specifies the type of component to create. In this case, it's the uScene component. uScene component is the base class for any component that has a transform and can be attached to other scene components forming a hierarchy. Text root component, this is the name given to the newly created uScene root component instance within Map Manager. It is not expecting an item already in the scene. Okay. And then set root component root can have one uScene component designated as its root component. The root component's transform defines the actor's overall transform in the world. If you move the actor in the editor or via code, you are actually moving its root component. Yes, that's set. Okay, so this should be then creating an object for the root and then setting it as the root component. So let's maybe, well, here, let's go back. All right, so if I go back and I go back to adding a map manager. Yeah, see, this is what it did before. So now Map Manager just doesn't even show up in this. But if I come back to the code, actually, let me do this. Let me refresh the writer project just to make sure that our editor instance here and other things is off. So I ran into this issue the first time I opened this, in that when I open the editor, I have no Map Manager object to be able to add to the scene. Before, I then just went into Writer and rebuilt the source code, and then it showed up. Which is probably what we're going to need to do again. But let's see. Yeah, so no Map Manager at all in there. And so if I go back to Writer and build that again. And then I come back and now, boom, now we have a Map Manager again. So something going on with this that I'm unsure about. All right, and then we give it data. We save this level. And then when we hit this, you can see we have nothing, right? We see no anything. Yeah, we're Whispering Vale game mode, so that's fine. All right. So let's see if, while we're just kind of hanging out here, we'll see if we suddenly get a crash again based off of this root component, which is kind of weird. But we're not getting anything rendering. So that's what we want to start kind of taking a look at and seeing what we can figure out. All right, so why does this array only have, okay, floor, ceiling, north wall, east wall, south wall, west wall. All right, so all of our things. So we're going to loop through our cells. We're going to grab pointer to our cell data. And then we're going to loop through these parts to render, looking at each one. Get the mesh for the part. If it's not a null pointer, or if the pointer is not null, then render it. Okay, so let's start first with adding a little debug log here. I like to put 9 asterisks or exclamation points, something at the start of log messages I'm particularly currently interested in seeing, just to make it easier for me to then find it in the log and see what's going on. So let's see if our mesh pointer is coming back null. Is null. Index. Let's say for index D. Port. Come on, sent. Okay, and then we're gonna want we call it their index, cell index, and then part. Does part have a toString? Oh no, we can just do HHD. Okay. All right, so saved. Okay, so let's build that. And let's just do a quick check there and see, are we getting a null pointer, a null mesh for index 0 and parts either floor, ceiling, north wall, or west wall. So we can have our output here. Do I have this? I do have clear on pi. So let's hit it and boom. Okay. Mesh point is null for index 0, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's why we're not getting anything. Okay. As I kind of expected. So our mesh pointer is coming back null. So let's see. We're going to switch part. What's going to be the easiest way to do this? Oh, shit. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've done C++. I haven't done a whole lot of C++ since like the 90s. Don't we have to have a, oh, well, we're returning. No, so we don't have to have a, I was going to say, don't we have to have a break or we'll fall through? But no, we don't. So let's look at this and see if we're going to have any kind of like equality. What case should we be hitting? Just to ensure that we're not just hitting the default for everything. And we can get rid of freaking comments. Way too many comments. For part and HHD, all right, I think is what we want. Yeah. Get mesh for part. And this is going to spam. Yeah, this is going to spam a lot, but that's fine. Floor, ceiling, northeast, southwest. Okay. Let's go floor mesh. Can I just do that as a string? What do you want? We were doing that here, weren't we? Oh, star mesh pointer toString. Okay. We can just star toString it, right? Or are we already a... No. Do we not have a... What are you doing here? Mesh pointer, which is what we get back from get mesh for part. which is a soft object to that. Why can I not just do that? Okay, maybe I just had something spelled wrong. And we're going to be ceiling northeast. Do I have one too many? Okay. It's going to be floor, ceiling mesh, just to see if all of these are actually something too. So to make sure that there's not some disconnect between our map manager, our map, our map data asset, and the loading of that information out of there. This is east wall mesh, south wall mesh, and west wall mesh. Okay, so this should then tell us if, oh, because I overwrote the other log. Where I do want HHD. It's our part. Okay. So that's why I was one off. All right. So our part N, and so these will do pounds. What's that? All right. Let's build that. Okay, and then let's jump back and let's run it again. Boom, we got a bunch of stuff. Scroll up. Get mesh for part 2. No. So nothing coming back for anything in 0. Oh, because now it's back to 0. Okay, see, something's fucking weird. And now if I set this to something, we're going to crash, right? No. Stain, we're doing all right. All 400, and you. 400. Okay, and then if I save, come back again, and we run again. Boom. Is your problem? MBasic wall material is missing the usage flag used with instant static message. If this material asset is not resaved, it may not render correctly. Okay, we'll fix it. So that's our MBasic wall mesh. Oh, wait a minute. Well, we're rendering something, so that's a plus. Oh, but we should be... See, but we should be rendering in... We should be rendering the level, the map, in the editor. We shouldn't have to play it in order to see it. So I'm wondering why it looks like I'm seeing something. Oh, see, now I'm not seeing anything. Okay. I wonder if it's that material. So let's look at the starter content. Basic wall. Yep. And save that. And so did this fix the whatever it was for it to be able to be used in the static meshes? Stop in there. Okay, I'm interested too if I close this level. So what was it? Used with instant static meshes. Let's see, used with instant static meshes is turned on, and that is saved. Okay, so that should take care of that with the material. But yeah, I wanted to see if now when I load this, is it all null again? No. Okay, so the things are there. But it's my map. Oh. But nothing is... No walls or anything are getting rendered in here, which they should. And now when I play, something is getting rendered. Okay. So maybe that's where things got off a little bit. Is that in our previous instance, things were getting rendered. No, get back to you. Things were getting rendered just within the editor. And I expected that to stay that way. But apparently not. So, okay, so we can see that, yeah, we're getting mesh for part 1. We do have our floor mesh, ceiling mesh, north wall, and west wall. So that's all reading correctly for everything. And then created ISM component. Yep, all of that. So, okay. Okay, so we're drawing our things. We're getting our meshes fine. Go back to you. Sure you're saved. Okay. The meshes are rendering. They're not rendering in the editor. And so maybe we can go back and ask Gemini about that. Let me clean up some of our the debugging stuff that we added. You can stay, I guess, for now, just in case. Okay, and everything there is saved. So let's go back to Gemini. I have one code folder in a chat. Okay, so you still have the code folder that I gave you last time. Oh, we can stop you because you hung. Okay. Looking at the latest code in the code folder I uploaded. Before we did the last refactor, map cells would render in the editor. Now they do not render in the editor, but it looks like they are rendering when I run the level. Is that expected behavior? Oh, and you're just fried. I'm going to have to... Let's just start over. All right, let's add the code folder. Load. Paste that. This get uploaded, and we'll see what Gemini. I'm interested to see how Gemini handles moving into here now a new chat, and is it going to suddenly want to do things in a completely different way than kind of what it was doing in the last chat. What? Introducing gems. Yes, I'm using a gem right now. Thanks. Okay, so current code, it would be expected that we're only seeing it when we run because it's done as part of begin play. Suggestions for editor time rendering. If you'd like the map cells to render in the editor, we can update the map manager class to call generate map visuals in an editor context. There's a couple of common approaches. And that's what we had before. We had these with if editors stuff. So that must have gotten rid of that. You can expose the Generate Map Visuals function as a button in the Details panel of the AMap Manager actor in the editor. This allows for manual regeneration. That would be interesting. Adding call-in editor in the U function macro, a button labeled Generate Map Visuals will appear. Let's try updating that. And see if that gets it to show up in the editor, because it could be handy, especially as we're debugging this code, ensuring that things are doing what we're kind of expect them to do, being able to just not have to start up the level and just being in the editor and clicking that button could be kind of handy. So let's jump back to Writer, and in our map manager, in our generate map visuals. And again, too many comments. I don't need you to tell me that get or create ISM component for mesh gets or creates an ISM component for a mesh. kind of understand that. Boom. Okay. So now let's build that. Finished. Back to you. Now in here, it's directional light. Up here. There's my map manager. Now in details, generate map visuals. Booyah! Hey, look at that. Okay. Well, it's rendering things. They are completely in the wrong positions, but that's workable. That is workable. Okay, we can work with this. All right, so obviously our north and west walls are not correct, and it looks like we have a ceiling but not a floor, or our floor is on the ceiling. Something like that. Okay. But that's kind of expected because it never gets the position of these things correct. Ever. So now I got to find here. Okay, so this is where it's doing it. So get transform for cell part. Where are we calling that? There. Okay, so in our generate map visuals, right? If get transform for cell part, don't we need that? Oh, it's putting it in out transform. Okay. So part transform is our transform, and then we can add instance with our transform. Okay. Oops. I need to do that. Okay. Makes sense. All right. So then we're creating our instance static mesh, and we're adding that instance at this location. All right. So we can go to our transforms, and we can look at what we're doing here. All right. So ceiling should be 0, 0. And grid cell size. That's fine, but we should have, these shouldn't all be offset grid cell size. Yeah, that's probably correct. Okay, well, let's do this one at a time. All right, let's make sure that we can render a ceiling. And that the ceiling is being rendered in the correct place. Oh, we don't even have, we have ceiling, north wall, east wall, south wall, west wall. And then none. We don't even have floor. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's compile that. All right. So we should just be drawing our ceiling. So if I generate map visuals, okay, I have a ceiling. So ceiling is rendering correctly. And and then actually in our test level, let's go ahead and just stick a wall on all of these. All 400, 400, and all 400, 400. Okay, and save. All right, so ceiling is correct. So now let's add our north wall. And see if our rotation and offset for the north wall is correct. Oh, come on. To you. Because I didn't build you. All right, and then if I generate map visuals again, boom, that is our north wall. That is correct. Okay, so ceiling's correct, north wall is correct. Next is going to be east wall. All right, so now we should have a wall on this edge right here that, goes along the ceiling. So we should have a wall covering this area here. That should be our east wall. And no. Okay, east is on the west and completely in the wrong, like an entire grid too far south. Okay. So our east wall, its rotation is correct. No, its rotation is wrong. Grid cell size. Where do we want? Do we want you here? U 0.0F. 0. $90 there. Let's see what that is. Stole shit. Okay, no, now we're just like being gone. Okay. All right, let me put you back to E and just see where's our offset. Yeah, I should only ever change one thing at a time. Instead of changing two things and not knowing what change did what. Okay, oh, that's all that, okay, that's all that was needed. All right, so it was just offset wrong that way. Or it just needed to be 90 and it was 180 or whatever it was before. Okay, so east wall is now correct. All right, so now south wall, which should be here. Come on. Can't control anything properly. All right, so south wall there. I'm going 180 on the Y and negative grid cell size in the Y for the offset. All right, let's see if that's correct, which I'm sure it. Yeah. Way off. Okay. Off on the Y. Off on the X. Okay, so You don't want to be negative. You want to be positive. And I think you still want to be 180 though. You might need to be grid cell size and grid cell size though. All right. Generate. Boom. Excellent. 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 Okay. There's 3 out of our 4 walls. Now you. All right. So west wall is going to be, so if that was 0, that was both of those. You're probably going to be this. -90 and, well, let's see. All right, let's see where it goes. Let's just see where it's at and then update from. Rather than trying to guess or visualize it in my head, which I am horrible at visualizing 3 dimensions in my head. Okay, yep. So we need to be grid cell on the plus on the Y and negative on the X. Negative on the X and plus on the Y. Grid, not grid. Okay. Build. All right, so now do we get our wall where we expect our wall? Almost. But no, I don't want to move you at all, apparently. I'm sure somebody's watching this and just is like screaming at their monitor because it's probably so easy to understand what needs to be offset what. But unfortunately, my brain just has issues with that. Boom. All right. There's all 4 of our walls. So now let's add our missing floor, which I don't know why floor was not there, which is just 0, but it needs no offset. Maybe that's why, but apparently there's some issue with that. And let's see if that gives us our floor. All right, and while we're here, let's go ahead and go back and take off our east wall and our south wall. So we should have a floor, a ceiling, a wall in the north, and a wall in the west. So top, where it is, top left corner of. So ideally what we should be seeing when we click generate. And there we are. We got it. All right, there's our first actual geometry rendered and in the game, and the start of our level editor. So next episode, which I will do my best for it to not be like, you know, a week between the next video. Hopefully I have that out within a day or 2. Ideally, I'd like to be putting videos up every day or every other day. But I think now that I'm at this point and, getting kind of my whole process of recording this and, creating the videos kind of smoothed out, uh, hopefully I should be past that issue of, kind of getting stuck for a few days and not getting any content out. So, yeah, so next episode we will start kind of fleshing out the editor itself, and start getting to the point where now we can start to, rather than having to go into like this object and change all these values by hand, give us a little something that's a little easier, a little faster than to start getting levels laid out. Nothing super complicated at this point. It's just I want to be able to pick up a map, have all boundary walls already there, define a few, turns and rooms and areas or whatever in there. And then we'll start kind of working on then the game side of the rendering of these things, and getting the grid movement in, having the first person view in there and being able to move around within a level. And then we can start kind of, iterating on look and feel and whatnot. We'll start adding some textures, start getting things looking interesting, add some lighting, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then just keep continuing off of there. So thanks for hanging out. Post in the comments, questions, ideas, if there's things you hate about, the way the video's going, or, I'm doing things, happy to hear that too. Or if there's things that you like and want to see more of, happy to have both criticisms and, praises for things. So, yeah. And so until next time, enjoy, and hit the subscribe and notify and all that jazz. All right. Bye.